Hey folks, welcome back. My name is Krishna. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're an existing subscriber, thank you. I appreciate that. In today's video, we're going to take a look at Krita, which is an open source digital drawing tool that is available on Windows, Mac, and Linux machines. And I've only had a chance to play with this tool for less than 48 hours. Spoiler alert, I think it's a great tool. Second spoiler alert, it's not quite there for me in terms of being able to fully jump away from Photoshop, but I'll talk more about that later. But it is really good and it is free, which makes it a great, great tool for anyone who's thinking about getting into digital art, or if you're tired of paying onerous subscription fees to Adobe and you want a raster-based drawing tool. I think Krita can be a really good, viable alternative for you. So the first thing that I did when I installed Krita was I wanted to see if there was an option to where I could change the keyboard shortcuts to match my muscle memory from Photoshop. And fortunately, I was able to do that. Under shortcut schemes, I chose Photoshop compatible. This gets you about 80% of the way there. And for those keyboard shortcuts that don't quite work in the way that Photoshop does, you can always go in and you can make edits. So for example, if I type in selection and scroll down here, you can see that there is something that is akin to the Magic Wand tool in Photoshop. It's called Contiguous Selection Tool. I had to assign that to the keyboard shortcut W. And the way that you would do that is you simply click on the tool that you want to modify, and then where it says custom, you just type in your corresponding keyboard shortcut. What I really like about Krita is that it allows me to see all of the existing keyboard shortcuts. If I go to print, and if I print this out to a PDF, I'll get a document that looks something like this. And this is super duper handy because I can scroll through this list and I can see the existing keyboard shortcuts, and I can either write a comment or I can mark something out and change it to my own keyboard shortcut. So instead of having to scroll up and down in that small window, I think this is a really, really nice feature that I can actually see what the keyboard shortcuts are and what keyboard shortcuts I've also assigned to Krita. So definitely +1 for that. Again, I've just configured this for my basic keyboard shortcuts. I haven't really done anything, super in depth, but I like what I see, and I like that I can find equivalencies for most of my Photoshop keyboard shortcuts. So that's definitely really cool. Um, so that's definitely something that I think is worth investigating. I also had to assign, the freehand selection tool, which is the lasso tool. I had to give that the keyboard shortcut L, and so on and so forth. So that's a process that'll take about 15, 20 minutes or so, and it's well worth doing, so that way you can kind of comfortably ease into this tool. The next thing I would say is if you're using this as a drawing tool, you definitely want to go into the tablet settings and you want to adjust the tablet pressure curve. Now, based upon my readings, um, tablets have their own drivers, and in my own Wacom Cintiq tablet driver settings, I have a pressure curve assigned to the tablet, but this is on top of those pressure settings. I found out that when I just used Wacom settings and I didn't modify Krita's tablet pressure settings, my brushes were coming out a little bit too soft. They were looking good, but I wasn't happy with the pressure curve. So I had to go back in, and this was the result of, I think, about a couple of hours of just like trial and error and kind of playing around with the profile curves to get them where I want them to be. I also went ahead and bumped up the maximum brush speed to 100 pixels per millisecond. If you're dealing with a slower computer, you might see some lag. So this is something that you would have to adjust so that it fits within your performance parameters. But those are two things that I've set up, and by and large, I've been really, really impressed with this particular drawing tool. So this is my shaved ice brush. Didn't have to make any modifications to it. I just brought the ABR file in and I gave it a thumbnail, and I'm pretty much good to go on that. I know there's a way that you can customize brush thumbnails, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. But I do like what I see. It is really responsive, and it allows me to work the way I want to. Now, the one thing I have noticed is I'm not sure if there's any kind of hardware acceleration that's occurring within Krita. I'm not also sure if it's also optimized for Apple Silicon Macs. I haven't had any speed or lag issues, but I do notice that when I, say, for example, duplicate a layer, it takes, a couple seconds for it to actually show what's on that specific layer. So it's not a deal breaker, but it is something that I have noticed. The other thing that I've also noticed is that the type tool is kind of janky, at least in this particular version, but I have been told from some of the Krita developers that they are working on that and the typing tool is going to be way better than what it currently is right now. So I haven't fully been able to leave Photoshop behind for Krita, but if I had to use Krita and only Krita, I could still feel pretty confident in being able to get my work done for the most part. And then I could probably use something like Affinity Photo or something like that for any kind of like text modification. So I really like this particular tool. Again, this is just my first impressions. Once I was able to dial in my Photoshop keyboard shortcuts, I was able to get up and running with this tool relatively quickly. The fact that it's free and the fact that it has lower, storage and memory requirements is a really big bonus, especially if you're running this on an older machine. I think it requires 4 gigs minimum, which I don't think Photoshop even comes close to that. But again, the developers state that 16 gigs is recommended. But I think overall it's really fantastic. Like for example, you can have your symmetry tool. You can do all sorts of really cool things that you can within Photoshop. So definitely a thumbs up. If you want to see me talk more about Krita and provide some Krita tips and that type of thing, let me know in the comments below. If you've been using Krita for some time and you transitioned over from Photoshop, what were some of the learning curves that you had to overcome? And if you can provide me with any kind of insight or advice or any other types of feedback, I would greatly appreciate that. So this is kind of a little bit of a different video. I just want to say, long story short, Krita gets a thumbs up from me. I'm so glad that it exists, and I'm so glad that it's so feature full, and it's something that I think really democratizes creating digital art. So I'm super happy about that. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up. And let me know what you'd like to see in terms of tutorials and techniques and tips in upcoming videos by dropping a comment down below. Thanks, and see you next time. Peace.